Hello and welcome to this webinar to present the latest version of Euclid, version 6.2.0, that we released on the Euclid website at the end of October 2021. Today in the webinar, I'll start with a short introduction on the Euclid 6.6 release scope. Then my colleague Mark Roberts will talk about the Euclid reporting and highlight what has changed since the beginning of the reporting activity with Euclid data. Then my colleague Robin Allen will give you a demo of the main changes introduced to the web interface in this new release. And I will come back to conclude and explain a bit what's next, what is planned in the future for Euclid 6. During the day of the webinar, we organize also a Slido Q&A session. It's running until 5 p.m. Helsinki time on the webinar day, so don't hesitate to post your questions and we will answer with all my colleagues during the day. So let's start with the high-level scope of the Euclid 6.6 new release. I wanted to start with the release notes because that's a great source of information that you can download from the Euclid website in order to have a look at all the new developments introduced in the new release. We maintain this document quite regularly on our website, so you can see that even in between official releases, we have releases that are shared with a reduced group of users, and that's why the release notes contains more releases than the official ones. So if you want to have an idea of the full scope of the Euclid 6 version 6.2.0 release, check the release notes since April 2021. You will see there is quite a lot of changes happening there. As usual, in the October releases, we have two main categories of changes. The first one is the additional improvements to the web interface. Nowadays, the web interface is the one that is mainly used by the majority of users. And the classic interface that used to be there is not maintained anymore, but it's still accessible in the same way as in the previous releases. So if you still need to use, for whatever reason, to use the classic interface, please go to the Euclid website and follow the instructions to get access. But please, at the same time, tell us why you still need to use the classic interface, because we want to maintain and continue to maintain only one interface in the future. Now the web interface contains a similar set of features as the classic interface, and the performance has been also greatly improved compared to the April release, which was a concern that was given to us by some users after the April release. So you should give it a try and see if it meets your expectation now. Then the second set of scope category is the format changes. Every year we update the Euclid format, and we have introduced changes in this year release too. Looking at the web interface updates now in a little bit more details. I listed here all the improvements made to the web interface that I extracted from the release notes, so you can have a look at the list. And I highlighted also some of them that I will show you a bit in more details in the next slides. And later on in this webinar, my colleague Robin Allen will also give you a longer demo of these features so that you can really have a look at what to expect after installing this new release. So one of the changes I wanted to highlight briefly is the possibility to create not only PDF files out of Euclid data, but you can now create also RTF data, which can be opened with a Word editor like MS Word or OpenOffice. So this is available for all documents you display in Euclid and for all datasets. You now have two options: create PDF or create RTF. Then we did some modifications to the reports that are embedded in Euclid, and my colleague Mark Roberts will give you a longer presentation on the changes done at the report manager level. But here you can see some improvements done to the PCN dossier viewer, which is allowing the user to create an HTML representation, so a report that you can open in your web browser to give you a in one glance all the relevant information extracted from a poison center's notification. Continuing with the scope, I wanted also to highlight this new feature, which is the possibility to import from an Excel file or a CSV file data that will be used to populate what we call repeatable blocks or tabs in Euclid to facilitate the encoding and the reporting of data. So if you have a long list of values to upload in Euclid, you can use this upload functionality in order to facilitate the input of data in Euclid. We have also slightly enhanced the substance creation process. You have now the possibility to select a reference substance from your own internal inventory, and this will be used to pre-populate the similar fields or similar information available at the substance level. Moving on to the format updates, I will also give you a quick overview of the main changes to expect in this October 2021 release. I start with a short summary of the format organization in Euclid. We have documents formats that are managed at the OECD level, which are harmonized at this level and shared with all Euclid users. And as you can see on the right side of your screen, we have also specific legislation format extensions to support specific regulatory needs coming from the EU regulations or the legislation in Australia or New Zealand, for example. You can find more documentation on the format change process, but also on the format organization in Euclid in a report issued by the OECD about the Euclid customization, and you have a link here on this slide. So what has changed in October 2021? Before I go to the format changes, I wanted also to inform all Euclid users about a change in the way data is imported. You can see here a list of additional verifications that are done to Euclid files when they are imported into a Euclid database. These rules were documented in a document that is called Developer's Guide to the Euclid I6Z format, but they are now enforced in the Euclid import module. So this is really important for users who are preparing I6Z files without Euclid. Please pay attention to these rules here, or at least the developers who are building these tools need to pay attention to these rules because they are going to be checked when importing a file in a Euclid database, or for example, if you submit a Euclid dossier to a regulatory authority. Then looking at the changes of the format in more details, as every year we have updated the OECD harmonized templates, which are used to report the study summaries of studies performed on different endpoints and different substances. Here I listed the main potentially impactful changes done for some templates. For example, to report studies on acute toxicity oral, the effectiveness against target organisms, the efficacy data, the nature of residues in processed communities, and the residues in livestock. At the same time, we have also applied changes to all OECD harmonized templates, and these changes were done at the level of the way we store the full study reports and other study-related attachments in the robust study summaries. We have also added a new field to store and report additional test materials used in a study. This is used, for example, when a study is performed in a long time and the test materials can differ during the duration of the study. So there is now a possibility in Euclid to report this information in more details. And finally, we have also simplified the confidentiality flags, which are used in order to tag the confidential information in Euclid only. Continuing with the changes, I wanted to highlight some changes we did in the way classification and labeling information is reported. You can see that we have increased the size of field to facilitate the reporting of additional text for labeling. We have also added the additional hazard classes to the field specific concentration limits, and some specific hazard statements have been added to reprotoxicity and carcinogenicity. And finally, we have proceeded with some small updates of the labels of the nodes introduced in the EU CLP regulation adaptation to technical progress 16th edition. For the guidance on safe use document, we have also converted existing text fields in rich text fields in order to provide more rich format options for the users. And finally, we did also some legislation-specific changes, such as, for example, an update of the summaries used for plant protection products reporting. We have also updated the way the opt-out text templates justification can be provided. For the poison centers notification, we now support group submissions, and there was also an update of the EU product category system. And finally, I wanted to mention also the update of the article category for EU skip notifications. All these changes are documented on our website, the Euclid 6 website, on the format page, where you can download the latest information package that contains a Word representation of the documents. You can find also the XSD files, which are XML schema definitions. This is mainly used by IT developers which are building their own solution to create Euclid dossiers. It contains also a full list of all Euclid fields, including also which phrase groups are used in picklist and which picklist items are used with their identifiers. And for those who were using the previous version of Euclid, we have also added a comparison file that highlights the changes between this version of Euclid and the previous one. And now I will give the floor to my colleague Mark Roberts, who will give you an update on the Euclid reporting possibilities and what has changed in the latest versions of Euclid. See you soon.
Hello everyone, my name is Mark Roberts. I work in the European Chemicals Agency in the Euclid team, and for this part of the webinar, I will take you through the Euclid report generator and what has changed and what is available. In particular, I will take you through what's changed in the set of default reports we offer. I will take you through what has changed in the PCN dossier viewer as well. I will also indicate an alternative approach to report generation, as well as provide you with some further information from the Euclid reports page. So moving on, when you go to the Euclid web interface, if you go to generate report, you will be presented with a set of default Euclid reports. These reports come as standard as part of each Euclid delivery. These default reports typically serve three main purposes. These reports, first of all, either meet specific regulatory obligations. For example, the chemical safety report is designed to serve specific information requirements under REACH. They also serve the purpose to present Euclid data in different ways to fit certain users' requirements. For example, the PCN dossier view report, which I will take you through a bit later. This serves the preparers of poison center notification dossiers, but also those who are assessing or viewing these notifications. And finally, the reports also support Euclid users to view Euclid information that is hard to summarize in the interface and to quickly view this information in a flat list. For example, the list of attachments report, which lists for you the attachments in a Euclid dataset or dossier. So moving on to the next slide, I'd like to focus on this particular set of reports, default reports in Euclid, which we call list reports. What are these list reports? Well, they typically extract and focus on specific data points, such as attachments or literature references. And they support users, as I previously mentioned, to view Euclid information in a flat list. And this is used to support, for instance, quality checks of data. They support the assessment of data and potentially also the navigation of data where it's difficult in the interface. Here in this slide, I've listed the list reports which are available with this new Euclid release 6.6. And I'll just point out to you that there's a new list report added here, the list of inbound references, which lists for you all the incoming references to a Euclid document, whether this is a reference from another entity or a reference from another Euclid document. So to give you an overview of the main enhancements to this set of list reports, I will start in the center. Now with these list reports, there are 3 outputs as default. These outputs are RTF, PDF, and CSV. The RTF output opens in Microsoft Word, for example, and the CSV output opens in Microsoft Excel. Also, as standard, these list reports are generatable from both substances and mixtures, whereas before there were some that were generated or could be generated from mixtures but not substances, and vice versa. So now they can all be generated from both of these entities. We have also added so-called working context information. This working context information is, for example, the section name and number. A working context could be, for instance, a reach registration above 1,000 tons, and there will be certain section names and numbers attached to this working context, and this information is now extracted in these list reports as default. There's a set of standard dossier information that is also displayed in these reports. And finally, for those who are extracting or generating these reports from a mixture, there are 3 levels of information that are extracted by default. This is information from the main mixture, all the first level components, and information from the substance components from the first level mixture components. So these 3 levels are extracted by default in all the list reports. And finally, just to make you aware, because we have standardized these list reports, some of them have undergone some name changes. So just be careful of this. You'll find the full details of all these changes, including the new names of the reports, in the release notes, which I've put a URL address to there in the bottom right-hand corner. So to take you through an example of one of the list reports and to show how it's organized as an example, in this example, there's a list of literature references. It's been generated from a working context reach registration above 1,000 tons. And I'm in particular showing a literature reference that is referenced in section 4.1, appearance, physical state and color. Above the red dotted line, you will see information particularly about the literature reference. So for instance, the author, year, the title and report number, type of publication, the source and study sponsor. In addition to this literature reference information, you'll find more contextual information. So if we focus on the orange dotted line, you will see a column called Euclid section. This will display the working context information for you. Here, the section number and name, according to the reach working context I am in, are displayed. And finally, there's information about the document which is referencing the literature reference. And this information is above the green dotted lines. So for instance, in the column Euclid document name, this is the name given to the document by the user themselves. And there's a hyperlink in this name as well. So by clicking on it, you can go directly to the document in Euclid, assuming you have Euclid running at the time. And on the right-hand side, there's some additional information about the study which is referencing this literature reference. First of all, the GLP information is displayed, the good laboratory practice. And finally, if there's a data protection claim on the study itself. So this is an example of the list of literature references and to show how it's organized. Going forward, we seek to continue to improve the applicability of these list reports for all Euclid users. As I mentioned, we've tried to standardize a little how these list reports are made so that they can be generated from both substances and mixtures. If you have an improvement request or if you see any bug in one of these reports, please send this to the ECHA help desk. And any improvements or fixes we make to the reports, we will indeed publish on the Euclid reports webpage. When we publish the changes, you can download these and actually upload them into your Euclid instance and generate reports using these using the latest report templates. Just one thing to keep in mind before I continue is that there is a known issue that's affecting this release, and this issue is affecting the extraction of metadata from Euclid section documents. And this is affecting two reports, the list of attachments report and the list of annotations report. The list of attachments temporarily has been split between dossiers and datasets. And please bear in mind when generating the dataset version of the attachments report, the attachments which are appended to a Euclid document as metadata are not contained in this report. So if you want these particular attachments, you will need to create a dossier from the dataset and then generate the list of attachments report. Second of all, the list of annotations report is affected so that if you are generating from a dataset, the annotations will not be extracted. So again, please generate this report only on dossiers. The issue will indeed be fixed in the next Euclid release, but until then, please contact us if you have any other questions on these reports. So moving on to one of the reports that have been updated with this Euclid 6.6 release, the PCN dossier viewer report. The first thing to note is that the old PDF version of this report, the so-called PCN notification report, has now been decommissioned and has been replaced by one report, the HTML dossier viewer report. This can be printed as a PDF, so it can serve as a PDF output if you wish. But this HTML report also includes a lot of new information. In particular, group submissions are now included in this report, and for instance, displays where relevant several mixture compositions in the mixture composition tab. It displays several toxicological information documents and also displays the group submission type in the administrative information. Other improvements and extensions include, for instance, now the PCN dossier viewer reporting contains for both the main mixture and its components all the relevant GHS documents. And also in the other identifiers section, the other pick list item is now included in the report, and this includes all multilingual content in this other pick list value. It should also be said that this also includes the remarks field, which is part of other identifiers. Moving on to the next topic of alternative report generation. In Euclid, the standard way to generate a report is either by clicking on one of the default reports or uploading your own report and generating this from a dataset or dossier. But there is an alternative way to generate reports, and this is typically reserved for users who are building or testing reports or users who are wishing to generate multiple reports quickly. We have provided information on the Euclid reports webpage how to do this, and it's a two-step setup. So you would first of all clone a Git repository and then configure a .env file to make sure that it's compatible with your own local instance. The benefits of this this alternative route generation is that you can generate a report from multiple entities, so from substances, mixtures, even categories. You can generate it from multiple data sets and dossiers. There's no need to re-upload the report if you've modified, for instance, a report template, and it's extremely quick to generate once it's set up. As I said, you can find more information about this on the Euclid reports page under report generator script. If you have any further questions on this, or if you have any, if there's anything we're not explaining properly, please let us know again through the ECHA help desk. And that brings me to the final slide on where to find further information. On the reports webpage on the Euclid website, we publish the improvements and bug fixes to reports in between Euclid releases. There's also a so-called uses of the reports document, whereby we try to document for users how the different reports are being used under the various regulatory contexts. And finally, we have also this year launched the OECD Customization Forum, which provides an online area where report builders can share their experience and ask questions from each other. And you can find the URL there on this screen. So if you're building or testing reports, I would suggest you connect to this forum and share your experience and ask questions there and get involved through this forum. And that's all from me. I would like to hand over now to Robin Allen for the next part of this webinar. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Robin Allen. I work in the Euclid team at ECHA, and today I'm going to talk about the support material which is available for Euclid, and then give a live demo of what has changed in the web interface for the latest version. I'll be presenting some sources of help that are linked from inside the web interface. And then I'll be going through the structure of the Euclid manual, which is called Functionalities of Euclid in the Web Interface. And then I'll be doing the demo. Now here are some sources of help which are linked to from the interface. And you open up this menu from this question mark icon here. First of all, there's dossier preparation manuals. Now these are a link to manuals on the ECHA website that explain what data to enter into Euclid and how to create dossiers for submission to ECHA under EU regulations. Next is a Q&A icon. This is FAQs on the Euclid website. So before creating a support request, which you can do here, then you should check the FAQs just in case your question has already been answered. And that is a link to the Euclid help desk. Then we also have a link to LinkedIn, where you can discuss Euclid with other users of LinkedIn. The link goes to the Euclid website, where you can find all the information that you need about Euclid, and also all the documentation can be downloaded there separately. And we also have a YouTube channel, which has lots of useful specialist topics described on it, and ultimately this webinar will be published there. Now I'm going to talk about some of the structure of the functionalities manual, which is available in the interface by clicking on this rounded question mark icon. Now the manual has an introduction, and then it starts in chapter 2, which is help for users who are already familiar with the Euclid client. That's the old interface, the Java interface, and it helps users to move to the web interface. It explains where functionalities have been moved to, and it also explains how some things are done a bit differently. And chapter 3, this is an overview of the web interface. It describes the overall structure of the interface and the features that apply across all types of entity, such as import and export. An example of something which really does deserve a full description, because it's not completely obvious, is the settings for overwriting data on import, and they are fully described in the manual. Now there is a chapter 4 to 16. These chapters describe the unique features of each type of Euclid entity, for example, substances and dossiers. Chapters 17 to 23. This is all the features which are accessed from the 3-dot icon in the application bar. For example, the validation assistant and functions for managing data in documents such as cloning, copying and exporting to printable formats. Now, chapter 24 is only for where you have a multi-user instance of Euclid. So you might not need it, but there's a full description of all the access to data, the users, roles, groups, and sharing, etc. And chapters 25 and 26 is now Euclid contains tools for the calculation of a derived no effect level, that's the DNL, and a predicted no effect concentration, the PNEC. So in these chapters describe in detail how to calculate the PNECs and DNLs from data which is actually already stored inside Euclid. Now I'm going to be switching to the demo.
I'm now going to demonstrate what is new in the web interface of Euclid for the October release. Now the documentation has been updated. The link that I showed you earlier for sources of help is here. You can see there's dossier preparation manuals, Q&A, and video tutorials and other links. And the functionalities manual is under the round icon here. And you open and it opens in PDF. Now there's no change on the dashboard, but I'll open up a listing of substances. And you can see on the left here there's now a select deselect all button. So when you've got something selected, these buttons are activated, so you can export as IUCLID and you can delete. Now this new button here is export CSV. Now this exports the information shown here in the listing. So it's a list of what you have found here. So if you do a search, you can export just a list of what you found. It doesn't export the data itself, just the values here. And there is a listing. You can limit it to a number per page here. I'm going to create a new substance. Now you can base a substance on a reference substance. So I can select one. Now I'm going to base it on benzene here. And you can see it's put the name of the reference substance into the substance. Now you can edit this, but I'm going to leave it the same. Create. Open the substance. You can see the substance name is now the same as the reference substance. And the reference substance is in the identification of substance here. I'm going to open it. And then scroll down. And you can see that now the structural formula, the image file, is rendered. So you can actually see what the structural formula is. Save. I'm now going to select a working context. Now this is REACH registration 1 to 10 tons, physico-chemical requirements. If I open the table of content, you can see a new feature here is that the mandatory sections are marked with an asterisk. So there, phys-chem properties. Here the sections have an asterisk, but for example, ecotox information does not have it. I'm now going to look at some data entry. There's a new icon here, import file. So this allows you to import in bulk information from a text file to fill the table. Now to know what you can import, you can click on the arrow here and that opens a template. So I click on there. You can open this in a text editor. I'm set here to Notepad. Open, and it shows the headers of the columns that you can import. Now where it says code, this is the phrase code which is stated in the Euclid format, which is on the Euclid website. Now there are instructions in the functionalities manual of how to go and find these codes and to know what data to put here. I happen to have some data ready to go there. So this is the code here, and the other values are text. I can save the file as CSV format. And then import it. And you can see the values have been entered here. So the code was for standard formula and previously considered as. And then these are text values. And then save. Now I'm going to show about confidential fields. If I create a document, and here you can see where data is considered confidential. It's written here, but there's now an extra icon just to make sure that you notice that it is confidential data. Now, there's been a change to the flags. You can set confidential business information as before, but you can no longer set IP, intellectual property, or PA, publicly available. Now, if those flags were set in the past and the data was migrated into this version, the flags will still be there, but you can't resave them and you can't set them again. Now there's been a change to the way that the attachments are shown, and I'll just attach something here under chemical safety report. So if I attach a chemical safety report here, so this is attached in a field, and then you save it, and you can go to attachments, and there it is. It's attached in a field. But you can also attach files to the whole document from this button here, upload file. So this is a comment on the whole document, and you can see it has a comment field as well. So they're all shown in the same place. There's been a change to the printing. You can now print to PDF or RTF, and you just do that by selecting one of these buttons here. RTF is rich text format, which can be opened in Microsoft Word. I'm going to create a dossier to show a new feature here. I'm going to go to the advanced features, and you'll see now there is reduced category content, which allows you to reduce the total amount of data if you have categories to make the dossier smaller. And the precise data which is not included is described in the functionalities manual. And finally, there's been a change to the searching, where, for example here, searching in substances, you can now search for other substance identifiers. So that's the end of the demo, and now I'll pass you over again to Francois Le Goff. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robin, for this demo and the presentation in more details of the main changes introduced in the web interface in this new Euclid release. Now I wanted to give you some additional information before ending the webinar. These are the next priorities. So you might want to know about what is coming next in Euclid. And in order to do that, you can go to the Euclid website and access this page where we provide more information about our plans for the future releases. This includes the planned release dates and also some high-level scope items about what we are working on. Euclid users are always asking about the compatibility between new versions of Euclid and tools that are integrating with Euclid. So I wanted to mention QCL, which is the tool to carry out a chemical safety assessment. This version, QCL is working with the latest Euclid version, so you can upgrade Euclid and continue to use QCL. And then we have Text Analytics, which is a search engine for Euclid fields and attachments. For this, we are preparing a compatible version with the latest version of Euclid. So please check our Euclid website to see when this new version is going to be available in case you want to use Text Analytics. And it's the same for the data extractor. We are preparing also a new version of this tool that provides the possibility to extract Euclid fields in CSV and JSON format. So for these two, we are preparing a new version of the tool to be published soon on the Euclid website. I wanted also to take the opportunity to highlight the publication of a new tool on the Euclid website, which is called the Data Uploader. A beta version is available, and what this tool is doing is to facilitate the process of transferring data from external data sources to a Euclid instance. So what this means in practice is that this tool provides a way to map external data to the Euclid format and generates, based on this mapping, Euclid documents that can be assembled into a Euclid file and uploaded to a Euclid instance. This tool is developed in Java as a KNIME analytics platform plugin. So you need to use KNIME in order to use this data uploader. And you can find more information and also installation instructions and a use case for creating reference substances directly from the Euclid 6 website on the page that is displayed here. A newcomer also in the list of tools that are integrating with Euclid. There used to be also a way to integrate between the QCL Toolbox and Euclid, but a new way has been provided now with since the latest version of the QCL Toolbox released in September. And this QCL Toolbox now integrates a Euclid plugin called Tedra that facilitates the integration between the two tools and the transfer of key information about the chemical identity, but also other data. So you can, with this plugin and this mechanism, you can use the QCL Toolbox with your Euclid data. You can find, again, more information on the QCL Toolbox website and the Euclid website. I mentioned already the Euclid customization document report published by the OECD, but I wanted to highlight the fact that the second edition of this report has been published in June this year. And this is a great source of information in case you want to understand a bit more how Euclid works and how Euclid can be customized in order to support the data collection and data processing in relation to the regulatory framework around chemicals. And as part of this customization document, we have also created a Euclid customization forum, which my colleague Marco Roberts introduced earlier in this webinar. And this customization forum is a place where everybody can go and ask questions about the different customization possibilities of Euclid. This is used mainly, as my colleague Mark explained, to answer questions about the reporting functionality. But in the future, this place is meant to be extended to cover other customization areas of Euclid. Finally, I wanted to explain also that this webinar will be recorded and posted on the ECHA website and Euclid 6 website. And parts of this webinar are going also to be extracted and published as video tutorials on our Euclid YouTube channel. So you are invited to subscribe to this channel and have a look at the material available there. This during the webinar day, a Q&A session will be held as well. So you can still post your question during the day of the webinar, and all the question and answers will be published and shared with the Euclid users community. You are also more than welcome to join our LinkedIn group in case you have questions about the Euclid project and the Euclid product or the related tools. There are discussions that can be started on this platform as well. On behalf of myself and my colleagues, I would like to thank you for your participation, and I will see you in our next webinar. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.